course.
So
Leave meeting. I'm out of here.
gotta go. So give me the rundown a little bit about what made you interested in broadcast journalism, sports media, and then how, like, where you started and then how you ended up at ITG.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I really have been interested in sports ever since I was younger. I had older brothers who were interested in sports. The Braves were always on in our household,
Of course.
and the Falcons, and really in the Georgia Bulldogs. And so, the influence of my older brothers and the fact that sports was always on in the house, kind of got me interested that way.
Right.
And, I enjoyed I didn't really have a lot of friends around me in the neighborhood I lived in. So I learned to do a lot of things on my own. I would make up games like baseball games, I use a racquetball, throw it against the steps, and I had a basketball like almost every kid did, and I'd make up my own basketball games. So, I've always been interested in sports, and I had that creative side as well growing up. So, those things together really just kind of blossomed in to what it is I do today, to kind of give you the fast track version.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's how my brother was. We grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of older people, so he was all the time like playing with himself and never really had any friends either.
Yeah.
So where was your first job? Was it in Atlanta?
As far as sports,
Yes, yeah.
so no.
Okay.
Let me think here. My first sports media job was actually the year after I graduated from high school.
Okay.
Graduated from Tifton Area Academy, played football. And the year after I graduated, the radio station that carried our games there in Tifton, they wanted to utilize a player that had just graduated, a recent player, as part of their radio broadcast that following season.
Oh, cool.
So they went to the coach's principal at Tifton area, and thankfully for me, they said, "You need to give Phil Jones a shot. We think he can do it. We think he's good at this. Talking sports, not so much playing sports,
Oh, whatever.
but speaking sports." No, we had a good time. But so that was my first
Okay.
sports. That was my first job, so to speak, which I don't even think I got paid, but it was my first job in
Right.
sports media. Wearing a headset and commenting on sports. Now, I had a lot of practice before then because I always enjoyed, like so many kids did, sitting in front of the TV, turning the TV sound down, and doing my own little play-by-play thing.
Yeah.
So I've always had a knack and a love for that. But that was the first time following my graduation from Tifton Area Academy that I actually put it to use.
Awesome. So like when you were in high school, and I know it was a private school, so my private school definitely didn't have it. But now, so many high schools have like sports media programs or journalism programs. Did you have anything like that in high school to kind of like have that outlet, or was it pretty much non-existent?
Not at all.
Okay.
Zero. This was actually a local, this was actually a radio station.
Okay.
That, like so many schools and football teams now have a local radio station that follow the teams and carry all their games. That's what this was.
Right.
And so they had the guy that had done the play-by-play. His name was G.W. Tibbetts. I'll never forget him. And he, the Tibbetts family, they were one of the big radio families there in Tifton. So anyway, G.W. Tibbetts, he was the play-by-play guy, and I just sat in and gave my perspective as a former player.
Right.
And so that's how that was. But you had no affiliation necessarily with the school at all.
Okay. So moving forward, obviously now you like do basically everything from reporting to the shows to writing. But what other like jobs, have you done, and which one was like I guess, your favorite as far as, was it just writing or report, like going out in the field and reporting or anything like that?
Sure. So when after I did that, the next, let me think here. So I spent a almost a 20-year career in newspapers. Now
Right.
it was not writing, had nothing to do with sports. Okay. Um, and I was in kind of the marketing and distribution side of newspapers and newspaper management. Like I said, did that for 19 years. We'll just call it 20 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was in over in Albany and up in Atlanta. And when I came back from Atlanta, my family and I, um, there was I'll never forget it. Um, there was a local, there was a local radio station, again, going back to the radio side of things,
Yep.
that did Tift County Blue Devil football. Okay.
Okay.
But I was working, when I came back to Tifton, I was still in print media, but not sports. I was selling advertising. Okay. And I'll never forget, this was what started it all for me. I went to lunch, came back from lunch one day, and there was the most beautiful business card on my desk waiting for me, and a great business card. I remember that. And he certainly got my attention, which I
There you
guess
go.
is part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
And I asked the secretary, I said, "Do you know who this is?" And she said, "No, it was some lady from the local newspaper, or I'm sorry, from the local radio station." So what had happened was this place I was working at selling advertising. It was all advertising. It's what they call a shopper. I don't know if you ever heard of that, like a thrifty nickel
Okay.
publication that a lot of us get it in the mail. A lot of times we go straight in the trash, but it's nothing but advertising. Well, that publication that I was selling advertising for, they wanted to include a little bit of editorial and sports. And they knew I was a sports guy.
Mhm.
And I think because I had worked in newspapers, they thought that I was a writer, but I wasn't.
Right.
So that was my first job of writing sports for this this shopper publication, this advertising publication.
Yeah.
They wanted me to write a half a page of local sports. So I sat down. That was and I had no idea what I was doing. But I had always been an avid reader, newspaper reader. So I had an idea of, kind of how you phrase the phrasing, the grammar, punctuation, a basic understanding of it.
Right.
So I started writing sports for that. Well, the local radio station and the lady that I mentioned, they saw my sports write up in this paper. And when I called her back, she said, "Hey, we saw your article that you write for this advertising paper, and we'd like to know if you would be interested in doing a daily, like a 30-second, 60-second recorded sports blitz message for us." And it was like, I would call up the radio station and I would say, "Hey, Phil Jones here for Z92.5, and here's what's happening in local sports today." And I would do that. Yeah, I would call in and do that. They liked that so much. And because of my advertising background,
Right.
they said, "Hey, why don't you come to work for us at the radio station? You got the voice for it. You got a little bit of, you got sports knowledge." So I went to work at the radio station selling advertising primarily, but they also asked if I would be interested in being the play-by-play voice of Tift County Blue Devil football.
Oh.
Which I did. Of course, that was the dream job. I had grown up listening to the Tift County Blue Devils on the radio. Mike Chasen, Jeremy Jones. Mike Chasen, one of the best play-by-play guys in all of high school sports and high school football.
Mhm.
So I started doing Tift County Blue Devil high school football on the radio, play-by-play, and I did that for, I believe, 3 seasons.
Okay.
And then after that, lo and behold, I was approached by a man that this company will know, Mark Dykes,
Yes.
who, he and I got together, and he offered me a job, and That was my first go around with Mark, and at the time it was In the Game, high school sports magazine. And so that's kind of my first entry into the world of sports reporting, sports writing.
Awesome. So is there anything that you learned from like your 20-ish years in marketing and then advertising that you still carry through like when you're writing stories or talking to these coaches? Like, is there something that is really useful that was from marketing that you still use?
That's a good question. I think probably the only thing would be maybe the ability to communicate with people,
Yeah.
the power of communicating with people, knowing how to talk to people, building relationships, which really carries over not just into sports, but really all walks of life. And to be honest with you, I think that is really the key to everything. You establish relationships, you establish trust with people, and really to answer your question, that's probably the biggest thing that I gained from that side of my career in newspapers was building relationships, which I have, by the way, done with the coaches,
Right.
mostly football coach, high school football coaches, but some of the other coaches in high school baseball, basketball. Again, developing those relationships has been so important to
Yeah.
me, probably as important as anything.
Yeah, I was figuring that's what you would say. And it's just crazy how now, like even I catch myself sometimes like my age and below, like we don't like to talk to people at all. Like we text people,
Yes.
know people, but as far as like actual building personal relationships and like communicating with people, I know I sometimes struggle and like people way younger than me struggle. So that is
Yeah.
something that we could definitely learn. Um,
Absolutely. If I could give any advice, it would be just that to kind of break that mold and break some of those habits that your generation is learning, and really try to build and a relationship and communicate with people, because that gives them a chance to see who you are and know about who you are, a little bit more about who you are and what you're about, obviously through the spoken word.
yeah, that's what I think the biggest thing for me is like realizing that people actually want to talk to you. Like like I'm sometimes so scared to talk to people because I think I'm annoying them or bothering them, and I'm like, of course they want me to talk to them about their football team. Like they want to be able to talk to you. So I'm getting better about it, but it's something that definitely has to be learned.
Yeah, yeah, and again, just and here and again, keep working at it. Just keep doing it. There's nothing like practice, no matter if it's talking to people. I used to be kind of the poster child for being fearful of speaking in public and
Right.
speaking in front of people. And I remember the first time I did it. It was tough, but it has been easier every time I've done that. And you just have to do it. You have to make yourself do it, because again, I think those building those communication skills are very important. Like I said, in what you do, and what really we all do in any job through all of our walks of life.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what is one thing that is maybe your like favorite part of your job, and then one thing that you wish you would have like known or gathered sooner as far as reporting and or even your talk show, either one.
Yeah. So the favorite part of my job
Mhm.
is the ability to make a living talking sports and writing about sports. I mean, it
Right.
really is that, I constantly, I'm a man of faith,
Hmm.
and I'm constantly giving thanks to the big man upstairs for allowing me to do what I do.
Absolutely.
It is truly a blessing, and I do not take it for granted. And that's, we've always heard, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Mhm.
And that's truly the case with me. And again, I don't take it for granted at all. I give thanks every day about it. If there's one thing I could change and do different, it would probably be to have spent more time, and which I can still do this, but learn the technical side of things a little bit better, a
Okay.
little bit more. I never took a typing class, so I'm completely self-taught.
Oh wow,
Yeah, when it comes to typing.
that's impressive.
Um, Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe not to those that watch me type, but yeah, I never took a typing class. So completely self-taught. I never took a journalism class, and a lot of people think because I was in the newspaper business, and I make that reference.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, well, you got the natural writing skills because you were in newspapers. Again, not directly because I didn't work in that department, but just being around newspapers and people that did that for a living, I've always enjoyed reading. And so that has helped me again, paying attention to how stories are phrased and written. And of course, I mentioned that earlier, but that would probably be the biggest thing if I could change anything would be to learn more of the technical side. Just like getting this Zoom started. I had to have the help from our operations director to get this thing going. So next time, I need to be able to learn to do that on my own.
This, yeah, I know. We just, and all technology, well, and even like the writing styles from when I started journalism till I'm almost done with it, the writing styles have changed. Like what was appropriate then is not what you do now, or vice versa. So
Right.
I definitely understand. I mean, I'm constantly looking at our books that are 8,000 pages long to figure out what's correct in this year. Which kind of leads me to my last question. I won't keep you too long, I promise.
No, you're fine. I'm enjoying this.
That the same way that technology and writing is changing, like sports media and the way you report is always changing. And so, what do you think the biggest change or the biggest difference is going to be, or what is maybe even bigger now from 5 or 10 years ago that you see that's just making major headway or major difference in the realm of sports media?
I think what we went through with COVID, I'm not going to say a blessing because there was nothing about COVID
No.
that was a blessing. However, from a sports reporting standpoint, it showed us that with, a lot of sports, we could report on sports without having to physically be there. We have a lot of people that would do play-by-play from monitors,
Yes.
sitting at home. Now, again, that's not necessarily ideal, but it showed that we can be a little more flexible
Right.
in the way we report sports.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to have a camera on site, obviously, to capture whether it's basketball, football, whatever. But I think the ability to be more flexible, and that's really kind of what's happened in the workplace, not just in sports, but obviously the ability to work remotely from home. So I think that's carrying over to the sports side as well. To me, that's probably the biggest change. And obviously that's from the communication side of things. Now, as far as the sports goes, I think this the college athletes and their amateur status is kind of slowly dwindling away, and I have mixed feelings about that.
Oh yeah, me too.
That's a little bit different, maybe different story for a different day.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting and something that we could probably talk for forever about for sure.
Yes.
I was thinking about like even the Twitter space, and it just may be that I am new to it, but like so much recruiting goes on Twitter now. Like, you constantly see videos of athletes posting their routes or their games on Twitter. And so that's definitely something that I've seen change over the last few years. Again, it may just be that I'm a new Twitter person, so that may be why, but I feel like all I see is athletes on my Twitter page. So
Yeah, and that's that's a great thing. We see Twitter being used to give play-by-play,
mm-hmm.
Almost in real time with baseball games, football games, and again, that's kind of goes back to utilizing technology however we can. So
that's actually where I got my Twitter account. Was one of my first classes at Georgia it was like an intro to sports class, and we had to live update through Twitter. So yeah, that's exactly why I have a Twitter account, is for that reason.
Very good.
Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, thanks again, Kennedy, for having me. I really do appreciate it, and I want to wish you the best of luck as you move forward. You've got a bright future. I enjoyed the times that you spent with me co-hosting my show with me. And
I know, I saw you got a new co-host yesterday. I was like, what the heck?
didn't take long. We went out and solicited the coach. Yeah, that was Zach Gray, head coach at Lowndes. And we love, bringing these coaches in, players in. And again, it's all about what we do here is promoting all that is great with high school sports.
Well, it was definitely a joy, and I can never repay all of you for what I learned there, and especially how I grew on the live show. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Kennedy. You have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.